Before anybody asks, my hair is not greasy, it's just wet. I got out of the shower like maybe 5 minutes ago. Hey kids, welcome back to the channel. I am Uncle Frank and I hope that you are having a great day. In today's video, I wanted to sit back, relax, and have a conversation about Yu-Gi-Oh! Specifically, Yu-Gi-Oh! Card collecting on a budget. You see, Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a game with a lot, and I do mean a lot, of highly collectible, sought-after cards, especially once you start getting into the older eras, DM, GX, and 5Ds. The DM era, the Duel Monsters era, has some of the most sought-after cards. Some of these vintage cards are just absolute must-haves for many collectors, and so people with relatively small budgets for collecting cards often wonder if it's even possible for them to build up a nice vintage collection to show off in their binders and just to have something really nice from the older era of Yu-Gi-Oh! Because these cards, especially some of the more highly sought after ones, are really expensive. If you have a monthly collecting budget of $50 or so, you're not going to get a Dark Magician Girl or a Blue Eyes White Dragon, a first edition Exodia head into that binder. You're going to maybe turn towards something else. In this video and in any follow-up videos I do, I'm going to be exploring that something else, because while it's true that a lot of the highly sought-after cards from the Duel Monsters era are really expensive, there's also a lot of really cool cards from way back then that are pretty cheap, even if they are absolutely beautiful cards. So, in this video, I'm going to be going over my top 10 picks for Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards you should consider adding to your collection. Originally, this video was just going to have 5 picks, but after talking it over with some friends, we agreed that there's a lot of really cool cards back then that are still relatively cheap, and the list needed to be expanded upon. Now, before I get into the list itself, I would like to get out of the way an honorable mention. That is the 2004-2005 tin promo cards. These early Yu-Gi-Oh! Tins and the secret rare promos that come in them are still really cool collectibles, but a lot of them are relatively cheap for just the promos, not the tins sealed, mind you. You know, we've got Joey's Rocket Warrior, Guilford the Lightning, my personal favorite, Total Defense Shogun. Some of these cards are really cheap. I think Guilford is $7, Rocket Warrior and Total Defense Shogun are under $3. There's others. There's Insect Queen. There's Panther Warrior. There's a lot of really cool cards that you can find in those tin promos. And if you're looking for something on a budget, those are a good place to start. Now, with all of that said, our first pick is Dark Ruler Hades from Legacy of Darkness. A near-mint first edition copy of this card can be found on TCG Player for in the $18 to $20 range, and Dark Ruler Hades is a really sinister-looking, really cool card that just kind of tickles that dark fantasy feel that players really look for in a lot of these older Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards. Collectors, I think, would have an excellent time slotting this guy into kind of any page featuring a lot of more demonic or zombie-like monsters. After all, Dark Ruler Hades does have that whole story of being dethroned and returning as a zombie. Dark Ruler Hades is also well known for being featured in several card arts, most notably Skill Drain, where he's kind of seen melting away almost. And this card, I feel, is one of the more memorable entries from Yu-Gi-Oh's earliest days, which helps him stand out in any collection. Next up, we have the Spirit of Anubis from Ancient Sanctuary. This secret rare first edition can be acquired for about $16. And this is one of the coolest looking secret rares in Yu-Gi-Oh's earliest years. This is an absolutely sick looking monster with an almost Necro Valley-like effect. He prevents people from targeting cards in the graveyard, which I don't know how useful that really is, but come on, look at this thing. It's absolutely sick. It's got these really cool spikes on its shoulders. It looks feral, reaching towards the viewer almost. It's a really cool card. And yeah, he didn't see a whole lot of play back in the day, but when you're just kind of looking to get the coolest cards for your collection, how playable they were or could be really isn't what you care about. Instead, you care about that sick art, and this guy has some of the sickest. Also from Ancient Sanctuary is the third entry on our list, the Spirit of the Pharaoh. And I know what you're going to say, this card is actually terrible. However, it still has some really phenomenal art, with that pose, that presence it almost seems to radiate. This is one of the cooler card arts in any of the earlier Yu-Gi-Oh sets. There's plenty that, are, way above it, but this guy, he's only $12 for his first edition print, and I think for such a cool card, one that was even featured in the anime at one point, I think $12 is worth it to add this bad boy to your collection. And next up, from Pharaonic Guardian, we have Helpomer. I have no idea how to pronounce this guy. He's $17 for his first edition print, which is crazy because this is the face card of Pharaonic Guardian, and face cards don't really tend to be all that cheap. This guy was also featured in the anime used by Merrick, I think against Joey, but don't quote me on that because my memory's not the greatest. This is an absolutely sinister looking card. It's a weird ghoulish guy with a cross or a block on his back, and he just gives off this malevolent aura that makes you wonder what this guy's going to be up to. His effect isn't all that spectacular, but that art, the fact that he's a cover card, the fact that he was featured in the anime, makes this a standout pick. Next up, from Magic Ruler, we have Megamorph, and this card is absolutely nuts because I can't think of any other really early Yu-Gi-Oh! Ultra Rares that you can get for under $20, and copies of Megamorph can be found for around 19 to 20, which is absolutely insane. Now, Megamorph isn't the most amazing card. Its art is relatively simple, but it is standout because it was fairly often played back in the day, especially in like school-ground Yu-Gi-Oh! People have fond memories of this card, and to be able to get the first edition copy for only around $20, I think that's pretty cool. Next up, from Invasion of Chaos, we have Leviadragon Daedalus, which you can get in the first edition prints for about $12. This is an absolutely phenomenal card, one of the earlier kind of boss monsters in the game's history, and it's been retrained a bunch. It had a retrain actually featured in one of the earliest decks, if I recall correctly. The ability to use Umi to blow up the board, in a sense, is really cool, and this guy stands out, I think, as one of the more sinister sea serpents from the earliest days of the game. Next up, we have a video game promo card, Perfectly Ultimate Great Moth from the Sacred Cards. A absolutely beautiful card, I think. It's not necessarily a really iconic card. It was sort of featured in the anime, but this is one of the most beautiful early prismatic kind of secret rares the game's ever had, especially in the TCG. And the fact that you can get this guy for about $5 is really crazy to me because this thing looks absolutely beautiful. And yeah, it's not the greatest card on the planet, but it's an early video game promo. It's one of the early kind of anime cards, and that art just looks freaking sick, you have to admit. I mean, just look at this bad boy. It's absolutely crazy to me that something like this can be so really cheap, which means it's going to be easier to get a copy for your collection. I really have to stress that some of these earlier video game promos are really dirt cheap, and some of them just, I think, shouldn't be, but again, I don't control what the people do on the secondary market. All I can say is I highly suggest you pick this bad boy up. We're getting into the top 3 now, and while this video wasn't in any particular order, I did choose to save the best for last. In the number 3 slot, we have Blackluster Soldier from Starter Deck Yu-Gi Evolution, and this ultra rare can be picked up for around $12, which is absolutely phenomenal because this is one of the earliest ritual monsters in the game. It's a very iconic card. It was featured in Yugi's Duel Against My Valentine, I believe, and this thing has spawned so many retrains. This is one of the coolest cards in the game's history, and you can have one of its earliest printings for under $20, which means this is an absolute must-have pickup in my opinion. In our number 2 spot, we have Victory Dragon from the Shonen Jump magazine promos. This secret rare is absolutely beautiful. It's one of the earliest match winners. It's got really cool, crisp art. It just stands out as this really cool golden dragon, and you can have it for under $10. I think under $8 even. This is one of Yu-Gi-Oh's, I don't want to call it historic card, but it is one of the first match winners, and it's the only match winner, to my knowledge, that is readily available to the average collector and to a budget collector. Most of the other match winners are only awarded to people who won big tournaments, and so they tend to have really ludicrous price tags on the secondary market. Here we are with the common man's version, the collecting man's version, I should say, and it's much more affordable. And I think this bad boy looks absolutely stunning. So go ahead and pick up this golden boy to add to your binder. But while golden dragons are cool, you just can't beat an ultimate dragon. And our number one spot for cards you should consider picking up for a budget is Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon. Again, from the Shonen Jump magazine promos. This guy is absolutely beautiful. Everybody knows what Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon is, and this is one of, if not the first printing of the card in the TCG. This secret rare stands out. It just pops so well. And for under $20, I think under $15, it might even be like closer to 10, 12. This thing is just so crisp, so beautiful, that I can't see any reason to not want to have it. Kaiba is one of the most beloved characters in anime history, and this card is one of the most heavily featured throughout the anime. So to have such a historic part of Yu-Gi-Oh! For so cheap, I think it's just great. And hey, that's the list. Let me know what you guys think in the comments section below. This was a fun little video, and if enough people liked it, I will do follow-up videos for the GX and 5Ds era, because there's just so many cool, cheap cards that you should consider collecting, and I'd love to talk more about it, but hey, let me know what you think in the comments section. Also consider leaving a like, sharing the video, subscribing to the channel, all that jazz. No push-ups in this video. I'm pressed for time, but in the next one, I'll get back to them. See you guys later.